Hi guys, welcome to the brand new episode of The Film Angle. My name is Kris.
And I'm Alex.
I think we're going to be like a bit rusty today.
You reckon?
There's been we've been not very continuous with our recordings lately. I think that's partly my fault.
It's all your fault,
holiday,
Chris.
yeah, illness, holidays, just general like life in general. But like I think we've been making that excuse a lot. I don't see anything in the future really kind of getting in the way of stopping us recording on a regular basis, to be honest.
Maybe for like 1 month.
Oh, do tell. Why?
Oh, I got a holiday in August, you know.
Well, I was doing the thing where I was pretending like not to know, so
Oh,
that
I
I feel fresh. But now
see.
you've just broken the whole like magic of the thing.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But you never know when those flowers might attack you again, Chris. You know.
Yeah, it turns out me and Summer aren't really good friends, especially me and Summer in England. I went to Spain and I was absolutely fine. But in
Mm.
England, where I'm around this countryside and flowers, oh my god, since somebody cuts the grass, I'm just like an absolute mess.
I feel like a lot of people have been suffering from hay fever quite a lot this
I
year.
think it's
I
been
feel like
higher than
this
usual.
is high pollen count. I'm very blessed to not have to suffer from it. One of two in my family
I know,
that
because
don't. I think.
I love the summer as well. It's like my favorite time of year. I
Mm.
love being outside, and it sucks whenever you have to like huddle in a corner with your blanket on you and and close all the curtains because even an inch of sunlight's going to give you a sneezing fit. Um,
I can't relate. I can't relate.
you can't really. I'm glad you can't relate because it sucks.
No, it looks like it sucks.
Maybe they should make a movie about that, like a killer hay fever or something like that. I think a lot of people could relate to that.
It's kind of like a War of the Worlds. They were killed by hay fever, weren't they? The aliens.
Oh yeah, it was like something really, really small. It was like a normal, like common cold or something.
Yeah, something like that. For some reason, in my mind, it was like, oh, the flowers killed them, but maybe I'm making that up.
Oh, it was like all the little microorganisms that fed on plants or something. I think, and then like
Yeah, and
I
their
know
immune system. Yeah.
in the Spielberg like remake, they did like a close up at the end where they just keep going inside, like like they go deeper and deeper into a close up of molecules, and then there's like this Morgan Freeman's telling you like this is how the aliens were killed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that
I
film.
like that movie. I think that movie like
Yeah.
gets a lot of like crap all the time, but
That
I would
scene
watch
where
that
like the
movie.
bridge blows up and are they
Ah,
driving away and it's all kind of coming to
yeah.
brilliant,
Are they
brilliant shot.
from Europe? He's like the kids like, are they from Europe, Dad? It's like no, they're not from Europe. um, yeah. I like that movie. Saw that as a kid in like 2005 in the cinemas. I remember being scared of my pants. Like the bit with Tim Robbins, whenever like you see them go down in the basement, and there's all the tentacles of the big
Mm.
tripods comes in. I scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, I don't remember. I didn't see it in the cinema. I think I watched it as a TV film, but I was definitely aware that it was supposed to be a scary film. And I think Spielberg's really good at that. He's really good at making scary family films, essentially.
Yeah,
And we'll talk about it more next week when we watch the new Indiana Jones film. But like the Indiana Jones films, there's some really scary moments and some really gory moments, but they're still really family friendly. Like people are
yeah.
getting shot in the head, but it's like it's fine. And I just feel
I
like a
think he
lot
always
of
plops normal people into the center of his stories, and that's kind of like the main thing. Everybody he's in the center of his stories are usually from like a really like suburban background. I think that's
yeah,
why a lot of people can go in and like kind of feel a little bit of that.
but it's even just like the gore is quite horrific sometimes.
Yeah, he passes like I mean, I still to this day cannot believe that Jaws is a PG film. Like
Yeah,
it does does not it traumatized me as a kid. And like I was allowed to put it on my TV because it was a PG.
I think it jumps in age rating all the time, doesn't it? Now when they release it on DVD and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But we got two pretty big movies to. I think they're really like one of these movies is gigantic in terms of like its pop culture sort of
Mm.
iconography and how it's sort of rippled through to today. I mean, we're talking Spirited Away from legendary sort of filmmaker onto himself, Hayao Miyazaki, from obviously, helms the Studio Ghibli banner. But and this is probably the biggest movie he ever made, and I'm pretty sure all of his movies were big hits to some degree.
And yeah, we're kind of doing a bit of a Japan double bill for our Sight and Sound keep umming for blind spots, even though technically Spirited Away is not a blind spot for either of us. But I don't, well, I didn't really remember it, so I wanted to rewatch it. And Kris, I believe, is one of your favorites. And then we're going to talk about Sansho the Bailiff, another Mizuguchi.
Yeah, yeah. Who we
God
previously
damn it, I'm butchering that.
we previously caught up with his film on this that was also on this list, Yugetsu. So he's got two movies on the top 100 list. So that's obviously a very impactful director, and he did like over 100 movies in his lifetime, which is
Yeah,
like mental.
I heard this was like his 81st film
Yeah,
or something like that. So yeah, madness. Number 81, and yeah, considered one of his best. But maybe his best, because I don't think he appears again on the list.
no. I think he has a two. I mean, come on. I mean, like two entries like from the same director is pretty impressive. We seem to get like a lot of representation from Asian cinema in this list so far, which I love because it's crazy how you go back and you feel like how did I miss that, and it's so great that we can get to catch up with these films that I think 15 years ago would have been really really tricky to get your hands on, and
Yeah,
yeah, I think we're just so lucky to live in a time where I can watch that in the comfort of my sofa at like 4K. It's great.
probably thanks to Martin Scorsese
Yeah,
somewhere.
with his international Criterion sort of collection and everything. Yeah, he's
It's probably his fault. Fault?
fault. No, his
Great. Yeah.
brilliance.
Talking of Martin Scorsese, I wondered if I could just share with you my thoughts on one of his favorite films that just came out recently called The Flash.
Was it him that was like waving the flag of DC for the last couple of months? I mean, I thought he was a big anti what he would call a theme park movie guy. Um,
Yeah. To
did
be
he like
honest, it
this?
it wouldn't have. No, he did. Wow. I don't imagine he's seen it. I can't imagine he has
Right.
any want to see it, and I can't imagine he will see it. However, it wouldn't have surprised me if Warner Brothers had paid him to see it so he could shout about it, because The Flash has had the weirdest marketing ever. It's been delayed several times. Its main star, Ezra Miller, has been involved in some strange things which are quite troubling.
That's probably the
And
best word to describe
yeah,
their odyssey of the past 2 years is strange.
which is not something we need to discuss
We've
as
discussed it
part of the
before.
film. Well, yeah, we have mentioned it before, and in relation to the Flash and how they would deal with that, and with their lead star being problematic. And then they got like Stephen King and Tom Cruise to say how it was the greatest superhero film ever made, and it was going to
Yeah,
save cinema, and all these kind of strange things. And James Gunn, who's headed up DC, said it was one of the best films he's ever, one of the best superhero films he's ever seen. Starting to realize now they probably all had to say this to try and save it. However, I do think the Flash is getting undeservedly probably a bit of a thrashing. It's not the train crash that everybody thought it would be. So I thought I would just kind of give my quick thoughts on it, because I know, Kris, you haven't seen it.
sure. Yeah,
But
I'm behind on the DC sort of universe
yeah,
at the minute.
I
So
would say no rush to catch up. No rush
okay.
to catch up. But the Flash is not as bad as everybody says it is. But then at the same time, there are elements of it that are just as bad as everybody says it is. The Flash follows Barry Allen, and he wants to save his mum, who passed away when he was younger, murdered by what the police think was his dad, and his dad's in prison. But as far as we're aware, it wasn't his dad, and that's a whole nother plot point in the film.
Hmm.
And he runs so fast because he's got speed powers. If you didn't know that already about the
You
Flash,
run
that
fast.
he can go back in time, and he changes things so his mum survives, and inadvertently kind of like changes the future. And in this future, Michael Keaton is back as Batman. We have no Superman, and General Zod from the Man of Steel films has
Yes,
come back. Has
Michael Shannon.
come to yeah. Michael Shannon has come back to destroy Earth, and there's no one there to protect it, essentially. Yeah, poor old Michael Shannon. He was literally just an antagonist in this. Like, there's he might as well not have turned up on set. Like,
Yeah, you get somebody like Michael Shannon, like he can be scary. Like you use him right. I remember him even in Shape of Water or Boardwalk Empire. Like that guy is unpredictable whenever you used right. But it's just a shame that he's only just like a big
he's
heavy
yeah, he's just a spare part in this film. He's just there as, this evil thing that threatens the
obstacle.
world, but is still not kind of like the main antagonist of the film. The main antagonist is time. Uh,
Oh yeah, that's pretty relatable.
Probably anyway. I think anyway. The first half of this film is I thought the first half of this film was borderline excellent. Yeah, there's some dodgy CGI. You can't always just rate a film on that. But story wise, it was fun. There's some really awkward kind of scenarios. There's a lot of comedy. Ezra Miller does a very good job of playing Barry Allen, present day, and Barry Allen, 18-year-old.
Yeah,
He The character of Barry Allen, he is very annoying. So depending on how much time you have for Ezra Miller, you get double the amount of Ezra Miller. So
yeah,
they can be quite annoying. But yeah, do you know what? The first half of the film, there were elements of it that even harkened back to kind of like Raimi Spider-Man films for me. Like I really enjoyed it. I thought there was a lot of good stuff going on, and then the second half comes in, and you can tell it was absolutely butchered by the studio that didn't know
sure,
how to play it out. And from all the reports, there were multiple endings planned because I just didn't know how the future of the DC world was going to land after Black Adam and James Gunn coming on board and all that kind of stuff. And boy, can you tell. And I know you can't criticize film by CGI all the time, but this is probably this is some Scorpion King level CGI
yeah,
in
yeah.
a 250 million 2023 blockbuster, and I'm surprised they were happy to release it. I'm also surprised that they did in this state when it has been delayed so many times. I feel like there must have been a cut of this ready to go for a long time. I would have spent a bit more money
Sure,
polishing
yeah,
up
it's
those
it's
effects
not it's not a
because
new last minute project, right? It's the
yeah,
thing they've had the longest in the back pocket.
it's like it's strange because it would have been a bit where it's like it's so easy to jump on those elements, and
Yeah,
obviously I feel like the Twitter TikTok world, like I knew most of what happened in this film going in because as soon as the social media landscape decides it hates a film, they feel happy they can just talk about it and film scenes of it and put it online. I knew so much going in. Thankfully, it didn't ruin too much of my enjoyment, but like it's such an easy film to laugh at out of context, and some of it in context as well. But
yeah, I've
yeah,
seen the memes and the gifs online, and
it's a
out of
shame.
context, it's like, is this thing real? Um,
Yeah, there's some really like kind of troublesome cameos where you're just like, oh, this doesn't feel great. But some which are interesting. But yeah, when the nostalgia hits in the Flash, or they attempt nostalgia, it really kind of falls flat. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a messy film which has this kind of like if I was to like just kind of squint my eyes, I would have been like, this is great. But
yeah,
yeah, it's a butchered third act, which unfortunately kind of ruins the
which
whole
is like a common
experience.
thread with all DC films. I think they kind of always kind of. I mean, I think of Man of Steel, and even though it's quite an older one, I always think of
Mm,
that like being showing such promise in its first act, and then descending into Michael Bay esque bashy crashy action with where you just kind of glaze over. You know, you're just looking
yeah,
at
Wonder
images.
Woman did the same thing.
Sure, yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think what else. Aquaman was great. I still love
Aquaman was just like,
Aquaman.
yeah, that movie was just in a world of its own. A movie that proved that like if you have an infinite amount of resource, you can make anything you want. It was quite fun. I'm actually looking forward to its sequel. Probably not going to be as successful as the first because it also
No,
has a troublesome background. But yeah,
The DC world's on its legs
it
essentially.
is on its legs, and people
We
aren't turning
just
up to see the films too. Well, not
well
as much as they'd
exactly.
like.
Exactly. I mean, the Flash is probably not going to make its money back. Um, We'll see how Aquaman goes, but James Gunn has just cast his new Superman and Lois Lane for Superman Legacy coming out in a couple
Yeah,
of years.
yeah.
That's going to be the true test of whether audiences have completely given up on the DC brand or a big
Everybody wants to
character
go
like
see
Superman
Mrs.
would
Maisel.
wins out. Exactly. He's got a bit of a battle there. If people don't turn up to see Superman, and the DC brand, I think, is somewhat broken and is probably going to have to take a break from the cinematic world for a while.
Yeah, yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? I'm kind of at a place where I'm just having a real 50-50 relationship with the genre in general. I mean,
Mm,
at the same time, I think it's good for cinema in terms of revenue and box office, but at the same time, it's kind of just ruining cinema at the minute. Where the only thing that people feel like they're obligated to turn up to see in the cinema is a big budget, like theme parky, a superhero movie, and it's a shame that all these like there are really great movies on the horizon for this year. Coming off the top of my head, even with Scorsese's new film.
mm,
Um, I and I'm just really worried that the audiences have given up on going to see proper dramatic, films. You got movies, which are your superhero movies, and don't get me wrong, they can be great. We've seen from the Raimi films, or we've seen, recently. There's one or two, like Guardians 3, I thought was a really good time, and I had a good vision behind it. But we just really need to actually start churning out movies that we're passionate about and not
mm.
just for the money. And
Yeah.
because people just, it's just turning people away from the cinema. Yeah, I just hope that we get to a point now where it's like we either do something different, or we either stop it and we kind of like take it back a little bit more,
Yeah.
because you just can't continue on this path. I think everybody's getting sick of it.
Yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
it's
And
showing in the box office.
yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree, even though I am part of the problem because I always turn out for these films. But yeah, even I'm getting tired. And I do think filmmakers really need to step back and say, like, why are we telling this story before just unlaunching another IP on us?
They launched the title, the title and the director before they've even sat down to talk about making the movie, because that really is
Exactly.
what's happening.
Exactly. And the superhero films that have worked best this year feel like they are a labor of love. And for me, that's Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse and Guardians of the
Yeah,
Galaxy 3. They feel
yeah.
like a labor of love, and we need more films like that and less like The Flash, which feels like a studio mandate.
When I
So
saw the
yeah,
trailer, I was like, "This is like a fan fiction on Reddit come to life." It feels like that when you see it. But I mean, again, I haven't got a lot of like jurisdiction or a lot of you know gall to say that, because I haven't read the comics and I'm not as versed in the background as maybe somebody like yourself or others would be. But as a general viewer and a lover of film and cinema, you know, we got to do something different.
yeah. I mean, there's a good story to tell with The Flash, and it was done on the CW TV show. The first season of that show deals with the death of Barry Allen's mum,
That sounds
and
like it when you explained the plot to me at the beginning. That sounds like a recipe for a really good superhero origin
yeah,
story and a bit of tragedy.
the
But
emotional points work really, really well. I mean, like, and the emotion in the Flash, the film, was, those scenes work really well. It's just the overly done nostalgia that doesn't. But yeah, I mean, like, if you want those emotional beats done even better, I'd say watch the CW, just the first season of the CW Flash. I've seen the others, well, most of the other seasons. They don't hold up as well as
mm,
that first season, but man, I bawled my eyes out the final episode of season one, and it plays in a very similar way.
that's so. Are the cameos like? Is that like a reactionary thing to perhaps the whole success of Spider-Man No Way Home? Because I think that was the big drive to the success of that movie, was just like bringing back all these older
Yeah,
versions of the franchise that everybody loved, and it seems pretty evident that
yeah,
they're doing a Batman here too.
yeah. I mean, obviously, Michael Keaton Batman is part of that, and he's a good part of the film, despite being in the half that didn't work as well for me. Like, obviously, Michael Keaton's great.
We
There's
get
some other,
Affleck back
there's
here
some
too.
Yeah, yeah. There's some other cameos in there which don't they almost take they almost go like, oh, we can do the Spider-Man No Way Home of like, if people hear these people might turn up, then maybe they'll turn up to the cinema. but they don't really like use them in any kind of effective way other than like, look, and
Yeah,
you're like, oh yeah, and then it's gone.
yeah, I know.
Look
Yeah,
and clap.
yeah, and I don't know if that is enough for me. Might be enough for some other people, but
It's and oh man, they look awful. They look awful because they're
terrible.
for the most part fully CGI as far as I could tell, and
Dude.
I'm talking like PlayStation 3 level.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
I
bad.
mean, so whenever we talk about like these sort of big blockbuster movies, well, not blockbuster in this instance, we usually like recommend people to see them on like the biggest screen possible. But you're sort of saying see Flash on the smallest cinema screen possible.
It might
It'll
work
hide
better,
the
yeah.
blemishes better.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I definitely wouldn't turn people away from seeing it because I think, like I said, there's an element of it which kind of works.
yeah.
And the first half in particular left me going like, "What's all the hate about? This is fantastic." And then yeah, second half.
Even in a way though, that's even like more just like disappointing.
Yeah,
Sometimes when you have a nearly. Oh well, that's a shame. Um, well, hopefully I don't know because we got what have we else we got from DC coming up? We got the Blue Beetle, which I think is just going to follow in the same track as Black Adam and the Flash. Um, I wouldn't be very confident if I was them at the minute.
no. Plus, I think it was originally made for HBO Max and is now being released as a cinematic film. So I don't know whether the budget behind it means that it'll look any better than the Flash. So
Well,
that'll be
looks
interesting.
like
But
looks like my DC homework is not going to be like being caught up anytime soon. I'm going to
yeah,
be
we'll see how the Blue Beetle goes. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, for the general audiences, it's a very unknown character. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, let's talk about some better films.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you started with that because that tells me that you like Spirited Away. I mean, you've seen it
Yeah,
before,
yeah.
but we've never really talked about it, and I guess it's one of those films that you every 5 years you can kind of come back to and you're sort of sitting somewhere different with it. It's kind of I think cuz this movie operates on a dreamscape level where you remember the visuals, but what those visuals mean and all the layers underneath it are a little bit vague in memory, and sometimes
Hmm.
it takes a trip back to the spirit world to kind of reignite that and remember. It's sort of this you know it's a kind of a Japanese version of an Alice in Wonderland, sort of falling down the rabbit hole and learning more about yourself in this journey.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
really is.
it
It really is.
the story centers around a young girl called Chihiro who is traveling to her new home, her new house that her and her parents are moving to. And the dad, like all dads do, whenever they think they're being cool and have an idea, decides to take a detour from going to the house and going off the beaten track, where they come across a sort of abandoned theme park. And once they cross over the line, they cross into the threshold of the spirit world. The mother and the father are seduced by the local abandoned village with the smells of local delicacies and the biggest sort of like meat barbecue you could ever imagine. And whilst they're consuming the food, they turn into pigs. And Chihiro is then swept up in this journey where she has to navigate the spirit world, work in the giant bathhouse at the epicenter of it, and kind of find and reclaim her parents and bring them back home. That's kind of the basics of it, but there's a lot more going on.
Yeah, a lot more. Because it like when you start the film, it feels like it's this kind of basic, like you say, Alice in Wonderland film of kind of the young girl gets swept into this world of odd creatures, and that's all I could really remember. Like I said, this wasn't really a blind spot, but I couldn't remember the film that well from when I saw it
Mm-hmm.
last. And I just remember it. I just thought it was a case of she goes and just like meets lots of odd creatures. I don't know whether I fell asleep in the second half or what, but
I could understand if you do.
when I watched it again, I was just like, oh, there is so much more to this that I have forgotten. To do with kind of rivers and the environment
Yeah.
and spirits and lore and legends and just kind of learning how to become more confident. and stand up for yourself in a way.
Hmm.
And I just yeah, it's a really sweet fable essentially, or a fairy tale,
Yeah.
um, and with some gorgeous animation and really kind of interesting stuff going on. Really interesting character design, and I'm glad you mentioned the food um,
Food
that
that
the
looks
parents
amazing.
that all the food in this film looks so good.
Yeah, I think every Ghibli. I think there's like 10-minute montage videos on YouTube where you could just watch Ghibli food being cooked or eaten.
that That
Yeah.
might be something I have to search out because we've probably mentioned it on a previous podcast, but I haven't delved as deep into Studio Ghibli as Chris has. Chris, you're a massive fan. I think it
Mhm.
would be fair to say. Whereas I've only seen a couple of Ghibli films, including this one and My Neighbor Totoro, which is slightly further ahead on the Sight and
Yeah.
Sound list. However, I do think Spirited Away is a lot better than My Neighbor Totoro. I
It,
do
it,
still like it, but
they
I feel
operate on
like this
different
had a bit
scales.
more to it.
Yeah, they operate on different scales for sure. And I think Miyazaki had a lot more like at his disposal at this point. It's fair to mention that Miyazaki was retired at this point and was not going to helm this film. But you know, this was 2002 when this was released, and I think it's fair to say he's came out of retirement like several times after that. After every film, he was just like, I'm done. And then he is like this creature who is addicted to work, and he cannot be, he has to always be working towards something, doing something with his hands, and put a lot of his self into it. He's
Hasn't
quite
he got another film coming out this year?
this next July actually, and
Next
all we
July, there you go.
have is a poster so far.
I've
um
heard that they're not going to do any marketing for it.
Strange. I mean, Ghibli as a studio, in terms of producing and creating films, ended in 2014 with their last film, which was called When Marnie Was There. Really nice film, actually. But they went on a hiatus, and they've kind of just stopped being a studio that makes anything anymore. And this seems to be like the last, I know, real Ghibli 2D hand drawn animated film, especially from Miyazaki, because he's no spring chicken. Um, he's in his 80s, and he's been doing this project pretty much solo. I mean, he's been alone in the workshop during COVID. There are videos of him just like drawing. He was aiming to do 12 minutes of animation a year on this
No.
project. So, he hand draws all of it himself. And it's just a real labor of love. And this movie coming out, How Do You Live, it's called, is a last little swan song. And it's supposed to be a parting gift to his grandchildren. So, this guy doesn't deal with like small themes. It's big gestures. And it's interesting because he's quite an introverted person, maybe a bit of a grump, but his movies are so sweet and lovely, and focus on, and he really captures the innocence and the realistic nature of how children act and think. And I think Chihiro is the ultimate embodiment of of a child, of a girl who
Yeah.
starts off as whenever he was coming up with the concept of this movie, it came to him. He was visiting, I think he was visiting his granddaughter, and his granddaughter had a friend in the back garden, and they were playing, and he noticed that he found her really annoying. um
Chichiro is so annoying at the
yeah,
start of this film. It is worth saying, but it's a good character arc because she's less annoying by the end of the film. But she is
yeah,
ridiculously whiny at the start of the film.
yeah. His granddaughter's friend he found really really annoying, and that's when he had the idea for the character. um so yeah, no, I think that's the thing. She's quite impatient. She's very reliant on her parents, and reliant on everybody. I mean, the first thing she does whenever she enters this world and her parents are taken from her is she just cars by the side of the river until Haku, the river spirit, comes and takes her on this journey and puts her on the path to sort of self discovery. Yeah, I think it's incredible. I think all the things that Miyazaki puts into the animation, like even the way Chihiro walks or runs. I think of the staircase scene whenever she puts her foot on the stair, and and the stair just like collapses in on her, and then she does this like really over the top run,
Mm.
panic, and the way this the kind of animates the body where the arms are in the air, and he just gets it so right. But just the visuals and the concept of this bathhouse that operates like a city, where all these strangest creatures and spirits that you've never could have imagined in your wildest dreams kind of come to life. I first time I saw this movie, I was a kid and I'd never seen anything like it before. And I just remember not being able to leave my seat and just being fixated on this really strange vision.
That's interesting because I was thinking whilst I was watching the film, I was like, what is how much of an attention span does it allow a child? Like, how much? I don't know what I'm trying to say here. What kind of attention span does a child have to be able to sit through this film? Because I think it doesn't navigate like a normal children's film,
I
or
think it
maybe
is a
not a
movie for
modern
children.
children's film. And it is, yeah, it is supposed to be, but maybe that's a culture thing as well.
Mm,
I just feel like the kind of Western animation films that are coming out at the moment, I'm thinking of like your Minions and stuff, are so different. Do not
yeah.
have time to breathe. Whereas obviously Spirited Away is kind of like you are enveloped into this world and you kind of you live in it. You don't. It's not the most story driven film ever. You're almost just
No,
you're
no.
wandering this kind of space. And I, you know, as an adult, I'm like, yeah, I can get into this, I found it a very cozy film. I chucked it on my projector, or I was in bed. I was, I felt very
Snug as a
cozy while I was
bug.
watching it. Yeah, it felt very cozy. All these kind of interesting characters and animation, a beautiful score that kind of follows them around. I was completely enthralled by the character's design of Yubaba. I thought she looked fascinating,
So cool, right?
so cool.
Yeah. Whenever
Yeah,
she's yelling at Chihiro, and there's a side angle where her giant bulbous nose is pressed against Chihiro, and her hair is like cascading forward in this rage. It's such an amazing, character design. And yeah, the first time you see Yubaba or a version of her is the Raven with it's just a normal bird with the head of Yubaba on it, and you're either going ahead with this sort of weird journey or you're not. It kind of
yeah,
lays its cards on the
yeah. But
table.
yeah, no, it's interesting to hear that like you as a child were enthralled by that. Maybe you're weird, but maybe a lot of other people were as well.
Like, I came home from school one day. I was probably 11 years old. It was on Film 4 because they were big on showing the films of Miyazaki at the time. And it
Yes,
was at the boiler room scene where we're introduced to the boiler man, who I absolutely love. Really cool character, with these sort of these circular glasses and these massive giant spider like arms that he's got. And I remember just sitting down. I put it on. Never heard of Spirited Away before in my life because I was, was 10 or whatever. And I just didn't put it down. I didn't get out of my uniform. I sat there for the remainder of the movie and watched the whole thing because I had never seen anything like it before.
yeah,
I was watching hyper cartoons and everything at the time too. So I don't know. I think it's good for a kid because you put yourself in the character of Chihiro, but you really, really need to kind of discover it yourself. I think if a parent or an adult puts a kid in front of it and says, you need to watch this Ghibli film, I think that's not the right way for a kid to discover. I think they'll be adverse to any of these films. I think they need to find it out for themselves. Because these movies are like watching these movies is like falling down a rabbit hole also.
yeah, yeah. No, I can see that. I can see that.
Talk about favorite sort of scenes in the movie. I really love the big bathroom stink spirit scene with the giant with all the bath tokens and all the chaos of everybody not wanting this giant stink monster to come in, and just the animation in that scene is just so memorable. I mean, I can sort of smell the script. I guess it's hands on, and I can smell the thing from where I'm sitting when I'm watching it.
Uh,
I love that scene so much. Um, yeah, the chaos of it. Um, I think No Face is like one of the most like apart from Totoro is probably one of the most identifiable characters in the Ghibli verse. Very
yes.
creepy. But there's a lot more going on there too. I think it benefits if you're actually probably Japanese seeing this film. I think
Yeah,
you probably
because
will understand a lot more than Western audiences.
I heard that it's a lot of the characters are real kind of folklore
Yeah.
characters and a mix of kind of Ghibli's own creations. which I thought is really interesting because obviously you don't get any of that as a Western perspective, unless of course you are aware of these stories. But unfortunately,
Yeah.
we're quite ignorant to it,
Yeah.
so I don't really know any of them.
But
So
so
they're all new to me.
The Japanese home religion is Shintoism, isn't that right? And they have like 1,000 different gods for every aspect of life, from from the weather to like we got here, like rivers. Um, even grass has its own god and everything. So I think there's a lot. If you know or you're versed in Shintoism or that religion, you probably pick up all the little details in here. But it still works, and I think it's just an incredible piece of imagination, really. And I think it's still a benchmark for hand-drawn animation. It's still not my favorite Miyazaki movie, and that goes to show that the guy was just a master and a force unto himself. So please catch up with the rest of his movies, Alex. They're bloody amazing. But yeah, Spirited Away, I can blame anybody for saying it's their favorite Ghibli. It's a stunning piece of film, and definitely, like, for me, deserves to be on this list. A movie I'll just keep returning to in my life.
Nice, nice. I very much like it. I don't think I love it as much as you do, but you have had a longer relationship with it. But yeah, no, I
We used
very
to do
much
it,
enjoyed it, and I'm mad that I had forgotten most of it. And yeah, no, I can see myself returning to this at some point in the future again.
to have a nice little sleep too, snug in a bug
Exactly,
on your
exactly.
on a projector. That's a really nice way to watch it. Actually, you
It
must have
was
been.
good actually. Yeah, it was very good.
Were you like laying down in your bed?
Yeah.
How did you not fall asleep?
I mean, it was boiling hot, so that didn't help.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
especially when it gets to like the second half of the movie, where you get like the train line on this beautiful lake with passing these little country houses. I mean, that's just like that's just begging you to fall asleep to it. So
Mm,
fair play, buddy.
I'm not a big fall asleep during a film guy. I don't think I ever have. So
Before
I'm
you sit
trained.
down to watch the film, that right, I'm maybe too tired here. I'm not going to watch it, or I put on a pot of coffee or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I just never. I've never fallen asleep during one. Never fallen asleep. Don't know what it is.
Too much depression.
Something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you liked it. A little less positive than me, but I'm hyperbolic over this movie, and I'm kind of,
Yes.
I think on my letterbox, basically every I don't think there's any Ghibli film, never mind Miyazaki film, on my letterbox page that's under like a 4. So yeah, I'm a little bit biased, but I'm biased to Japanese animation. I love the subgenre. So great, glad that you got as much out of it. No, I did. I think it's great.
Good. Good. Shall we move over to our second Japanese film?
Yep. Yep.
This one is actually a real blind spot. Uh,
Yeah.
we both haven't seen this one.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the 1954 film Sansho the Bailiff, which
Hmm.
was directed by Kenji Mizoguchi, who we have seen a previous film, which was Yugetsu or
Yeah.
Yugetsu Monogatari, which you liked a lot. I liked a bit. I've got a feeling this might be similar. I like this quite a bit. I think you like this quite a lot, Chris. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Um,
I like this even more than you get to.
yeah. Do you know what? I think I did prefer it to Yugetsu actually. So Sancho the Bailiff is based on a folk tale, and it follows two children of a what is he? He's not an emperor, but he's like
He's a governor.
a governor. That's it. And the governor is banished, and or his
Yeah.
children are banished, and they then get sold into slavery. And it's when I heard it was going to be like a folk tale, I wasn't expecting it to be a full blown slavery film, which it
Mm.
very much is. And then the second act is like an almost the abolition of slavery, um, which is really interesting. It is not a nice film.
It's not an
It's
easy watch.
very
No,
sad, very sad.
and very intense as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we've seen a few films representing this sort of feudal medieval period of Japan does not seem like a good time to be alive or to be a peasant.
Absolutely
Um,
not.
it seems like a 50-50 chance that you're going to get stabbed or live a life of misery. Um,
Yeah.
there's
Well,
real disparity between like the rich and the poor. Yeah, yeah, and it's so tragic here, really, because you're seeing two kids have had the most tragic thing happen to them. Their father, who actually was a really, he was exiled for doing a good thing as well. He was for the people, and he was trying to, save them from. I forget, there was some sort of dictatorship going around in that area, and he gets punished for it by being exiled. The kids and the mother chase after them, and all the mother gets separated from the kids. Um, and yeah, and then it becomes this odyssey of them trying to go through the years, and they slowly become desensitized to their own journey, their own promise to each other to go back and search for their mother and father. The I think the young woman, she has a bit more of a Anju, I think her name is. She is a little bit
yes.
more, you know, solidified, and I'm going to, as soon as I'm going to still try to find my mother and father. But her brother is more just surrendered to the fact that, you know what, we don't have a mother and father anymore. This is our life, and we just want to stay on Sancho, the titular character's good side. And it's really sad. It just shows like the sort of progression of slavery and how you become complacent and just lose your sort of spirit for wanting to get out and live a life that's normal. That life doesn't isn't obtainable anymore. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really really sad.
It's interesting, and I was just trying to remember. I just found it as well. The kind of opening text that opens the film says that the film is set when Japan has not yet emerged from the Dark Ages, and mankind has yet to awaken as human beings. And straight away, that kind of got me like, oh, this is not going to be nice. Yeah, it's a really really kind of dark film, but I think if I was to, I agree with everything you've mentioned about it. But if I was to say, if anything, I hit up against was this kind of the idea of it being a folk tale. It does feel very simple in a way of being a folk tale, very straightforward. There's not a lot of depth to the characters, I would argue, and that meant that, like, as much as the scenarios are sad, I wasn't overly I just didn't have the emotional connection to the characters, which I think maybe I would have had there been a bit more depth to them. That being said, the scene where what do you say her name was? Aju
Anju, yeah,
Anju, where she takes her own life by kind of just walking into the sea,
yeah,
is kind of a heartbreaking and like beautifully harrowing shot of somebody doing something which they feel is kind of the right thing in that moment.
yeah. And also just how people's lives can sort of spiral without you. That this kind of reminds me of Yugetsu, very similar in terms of like time is of the essence. The more you sit and don't act, the more people that are sort of dependent on you as a person will suffer. And we definitely get this with the father. We find the revelation that he has died before a couple of years ago, before they were able to get to him. And the mother is kind of almost, she's just about redeemable. She's at the point of breaking. She's had like her feet cut. She's unable to walk anymore because she's been sold in a life of prostitution, and she's tried to escape loads and loads of times. And yeah, I mean, at the end of it is just the son and the mother left, and kind of left to their own devices. I mean, the son goes on this sort of really interesting journey where he manages to escape thanks to the help of his sister, and becomes governor himself. After he mentions his father's name, and his father gets sort of pardoned, and he becomes governor, and he uses all of his power pretty instantly to decommission Sancho and his whole manor of slaves, and which is so intense because you're like, okay, so he's going to die any minute here. He's not going to survive this, and he does. I mean, it becomes this sort of a testament of hope underneath
Mm,
all the sadness. You really just do think that there's going to be no sort of happy ending here, but I think Mizuguchi as a filmmaker really does is somebody who really likes to contend and wrestle with the history of his country and doesn't glorify um
no.
the past and the sort of atrocities that people from his homeland were able to commit, but he also wants to recognize that there is really good people here nestled throughout who really would stick their necks out for their peers, even if it means that it will get them into harm's way or they can even be killed. So, as we look out in the sunset or the sunrise at the end of this film, there is hope at the end of the day that this dark age is going to end and that there will be more people like our two main characters
Yeah.
that will prosper and yeah and pave the way for better people.
It's almost like the original passing of a phrase which one lives by. The original "with great powers comes great responsibility."
Yeah.
Not to always throw it back to superhero films. I'm gonna make a name for myself soon. However, Zushio's father tells him, "Without mercy, man is like a
Yeah.
beast. Even if you are hard on yourself, be merciful to others." And ultimately, that is what he does. And
Yeah. This becomes a
dude
recurring.
abolishes slavery.
I know. It's great. I mean, yeah, for that reason, I mean, who doesn't love a really good prison escape movie, which kind of this half of this movie is.
Mm,
And it's sort of biblical, the kind of it's great escape meets sort of the Ten Commandments sort of story in terms of like Moses coming back and reclaiming his people and letting them go and freeing them from the clutches of the Pharaoh. But no, I think this has a timeless quality to it. I really, and it's also really educational, just kind of to get more knowledgeable and tap into Japanese folklore, which I would not have been exposed to originally. I think you learn a really good deal about yourself, and I think I found those words from his father's Zushio, um, the sort of the crux of the film, and really kind of stayed with me after the credits. I felt like yeah, that's a really great line to live your life by. You really gotta treat people with you know bit cringy here, but with the utmost respect because it comes around again and people remember, and that's what ultimately keeps these characters alive at the end of the story.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, really good stuff. I mean, yeah,
Very well said.
I mean, you catch up with Mizuguchi. I mean, I doubt I'll ever see every film this guy made. I do think looking at his filmography, and I have had a look at his list. It does seem like these latter couple of films in his because Yugetsu and Sancho were a year apart. Um,
Ah,
so it does seem like the latter part of his career was really when he tapped into these sort of masterpieces. And oh, can I just say this framing is amazing too? Like the
yes,
way he
yes,
frames a scene. I think of Yugetsu with that scene on the river,
yeah.
with the
With the
smoke.
fog,
Oh,
yeah,
and it feels like storybook in terms of like when you used to get those old, really, really old Disney films like a Bambi or old princess movie where they would use the layering technique where they would push almost like a pop art book. They would push elements in front of the screen. He does
yeah,
that here with just the camera, and even though it's a boxy Academy or ratio screen, you're getting this sort of the real feel of the land. There's loads of like foliage in this movie. There's always like some character nestled behind bushes or big reeds and beside riverbeds. And it's like these people are almost like it's like the land is trying to keep you down. It's trying to like claw at you. There's always this obstacle in the way. And I think he was such a masterful storyteller with the visuals. Yeah, I think of anything, even the story, while basic and powerful, the visuals are they stay with you long after the film ends.
yeah, yeah,
Big thumbs up.
yeah. Thumbs up from me.
Uh, sort yeah, yeah.
I liked it. I liked it. I don't know if I've fallen into Mizuguchi's films as well as you have.
hmm
I don't know why that is. Just different tastes. Different tastes.
next week I'm going to come in with a different persona. I'm going to come in with grease my hair down and just become really miserable and just give everything a 1 star and just see how that flips the whole dime on this situation because
I hope that's not what you
I'm
think I'm doing, because I did not give this film 1 star. It is a lot better than that.
no.
Jesus.
I definitely do come across as the guy that likes everything, but I mean, like, you can't blame me. I mean, I think
No, of course.
every movie on this list is definitely, well, apart from maybe one or two, in my personal opinion. I think
There's something
a
to
lot of them
love.
improved. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, all these films have been selected by multiple people as, one of the top 10 greatest films of all time in their list, and that culmination of that has made the 100 greatest films of all time. There's an element of something great in every single film, even Celine and Julie go boating. Uh,
Yeah. You're up to this point your least favorite on the list, right?
yeah, I think so. I can't remember if there's been anything else.
It's a hard movie.
Was there anything else? I can't remember.
I think Tropical Malady for me probably would have been my hardest watch.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, no, I'm really good, and yeah, I the next film on your list is Imitation of Life, which I have seen, but I am going to catch up with so I can have a little bit more to say, because
Oh,
that was a
good.
couple of years since I've seen it. Um, but yeah, I remember really liking that one. And then we're into a bit of an Italian section of the film.
Ah, okay.
That's our next two.
La
Well, for
Ventura, I think, is
me,
one of them.
next two
Yeah.
blind spots, and then for yourself, one of the next three. So, um, yeah, as always, enjoying the list. But we
Mhm.
are probably
I think
going to be going back to mainstream next week, aren't we, Chris?
Yeah. Well, tomorrow, as the time of this recording, I'm going to catch up. I think you are also. We're both going to catch up tomorrow with the newest fifth entry into the Indiana Jones franchise, which I think we're going to get a really interesting discussion out of this. I'm really both nervous and excited about this. I've seen the reviews come out for Dial of Destiny, and it seems really, really mixed. Even more than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was, and that seemed really oddly controversial for its time. I love Indiana Jones. You love Indiana Jones. I think
Yep.
everybody who grew up with a TV set and a dad
Yeah.
will has a really close relationship with these movies. And they because they're just so much fun. Harrison Ford, could you imagine anybody else in the role? And the iconic John Williams score and Spielberg's direction. It's just like the epitome of what gets any young, excited cinema fan with a big journey ahead of them into the medium. And yeah, there's still movies I watch every year and still look at as fondly as I do. And yeah, I really hope for another adventure that reminds me why I love this franchise so much, and not a little whimper for Harrison Ford to go down.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm cautiously optimistic that it'll be okay enough.
It's the
Maybe,
longest adventure too.
yeah, which again doesn't sit well with me.
I
But
know 2.5 hours for an indie film seems a bit long.
yeah, seems a bit long, doesn't it? They're supposed to be these f- like
Zippy little
2 hour
adventures, yeah.
adventures, Like anyway, we'll find out next week. Hopefully we come back and we say that was a good outing for indie. Potentially doesn't reach the heights of the original, but we had fun with it. That's all I'm asking for at this point. That's all
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
asking.
the thing going for me is that I do not hate Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as much as a lot of people seem to. So if it's even on the level of that movie, then I come back pretty satisfied.
Good. I too am in a similar boat after rewatching recently. I too don't hate Crystal Skull that much. Nah,
Mhm.
I don't hate it at all. Actually, I think after watching all four films in pretty quick succession, it kind of works very well as an Indiana Jones film, despite um, being released so many years after the third. It is still an Indiana Jones adventure, just with some slightly more modern aesthetics, which kind of work
Which
against
end
it
up
sometimes.
looking worse than the original movies. Yeah, I know.
Exactly. But let's chat more about that next time.
And
In
we've
our
yeah,
big Indiana Jones bumper episode, which also might have us talking about Asteroid City, the new Wes Anderson film.
Yes.
We're both hoping to go see that this weekend, so let's see how it goes.
We've got the ultimate battle of the box office with Barbie and Oppenheimer coming up, which is going to be the most fascinating, you know, result of what people will turn up to see. So I'm really, really excited for that. So we're really big episodes on the way, and sure, we'll spark up really big conversations. But for now, I think that's us until next week, where we'll be catching up. Please follow us on Instagram, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, anywhere where you guys get your podcasts from. We'll be there, available to download and listen to. But for now, this has been The Film Angle. As always, my name is Kris.
And I'm Alex.
Thanks very much, guys. See you later.
Thank you.